Already got a very point already this morning, so that was a good way to start out. Boy, you really dipped up a dollar. Huh? Very good. Well, I want to, today we have police, fire, DPW, the big three, and I appreciate everyone's efforts, especially through COVID-19. The front line of police, fire, and DPW never stopped. We kept going. Our street operations, anything and everything had to be done. We were flying the plane as we were building, and I deeply appreciate that. I also appreciate the finance department headed by CFO TJ Plan, Deputy CAFO Nancy Gaffney, and Adobe Budget Director, for keeping us very stable and sound and strong financially, so we're allowed to weather these storms and allowed to move forward with the so-called sexy type things that are important to our residents and business communities and neighborhoods who are workforce. We're going to start police first. I want to thank Police Superintendent Laproot and her men and women in blue for their continued dedicated and brave efforts, and all it's been a tumultuous 2 years with many, many positive things and initiatives and reforms that they put in place, and been able to knock crime down, which has been challenging these last 2 years. And many times we're not being backed up by the courts, and Superintendent of Police, Police Superintendent Platt is putting a lot of initiatives on it. We continue to do academies. We're trying to catch, now we are trying to catch up with attrition. Before we were getting ahead of it, but with retirements and people leaving the profession, it gets a little more difficult even on recruiting on it. We continue to upgrade the OTPS vehicles on that, and I know there's been record takes of illegal weapons off the streets. We continue with our dirt bike patrols. I think you'll be seeing a strong sense today in cooperation with the state police, and so it's deeply appreciative. With that, I'll turn to TJ if you have any opening comments or opening comments before we get an overview from Cheryl, and then we might ask some questions. Again, basically, this is the first time in many, many years, if ever, that I have not had to come to you and say, give me a level funded, give me a 5% cut, give me a 10% cut. We start off with level funding, but we've really been strong in our financial management. And now we can look at doing things that can make the department better, which in turn makes it better for our residents and our business community. Might not be able to grant everything, but so that hard work is paid off. TJ?
Yeah, no, so this is the important time for you to tell the highlights and kind of the last year or two, kind of, and then obviously for FY23, what are the budget requests that you may be looking for. So this is your time to really tell your story. We'll ask questions throughout it. No, I think you're playing with Cheryl and BJ. It's this guy. Yeah, that's
okay. I think you're aiming the wrong way. Look right across from you. You'll see a hiccup in the road.
Oh, hiccup in the road. You get that
Thank you. Thanks, TJ. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The FY23 budget, the total request for personal services and other than the personal services, $51,928,000. The request is for a total of 603 full-time employees, 2 are part-time. FY23 level service budget request is about $3 million over level funding from FY22, but this would include fully staffed Quebec unit that has a cost of approximately $1,453,000. Once complete the MOU with the school department, the cost will be removed from the budget, and the net result will be $1.6 million over the FY22. The $1.6 million difference is made up of the following: funding for one additional holiday, the June 19th, an additional $300,000 for overtime. which is what the department historically spends on a yearly basis. It covers all those details we talked about, the dirt bikes, the motorcycles, if we need tours, the park, some of the other things that pop up, and sometimes we have a problem, school and high and union or something will pop up and we'll put extra details on it. $60,000 increased cost of fuel for the cruisers in all our vehicles. $100,000 was supervisor Babson training. They're graduating today. This afternoon, we're going to present them with certificates. Everybody raved about it. It was a 7-week course. And this funding is needed in case it's not grant funded. There's a chance that it would be covered by the grants.
Could you just elaborate for when you're viewing in, even viewing in on the back, that is supervisory training. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that initiative you put in?
Sure. What we found is my middle management, which would be sergeants and lieutenants, mostly lieutenants, needed some sort of training other than police. They have police knowledge. They have the laws down and what to do with their employees on the street. What they were missing, we felt, was a little bit of a leadership training program. So Babson offered this 7-week course every Friday. It's mostly, it is now all lieutenants. There was 2 sergeants, both those sergeants have been promoted. So it's all lieutenants in there. And they're learning how to be leaders, leadership skills, how to talk to people, the differences in people's work ethic. We found that to be very beneficial. How to get done what needs to be getting done without direct orders. I think it's gone really well. Babson raved about it and said I had a group of lieutenants in there that were engaged. They asked a lot of questions. There was a good speaker. It's a good curriculum. And it finishes up today for the first 7-week program, and I would love to repeat it. I'd love to see if we can get the funds to repeat it because it was well worth it. They are. We're giving them certificates today too, I think.
I just wanted the viewing public to know that training initiatives.
Yep.
And I see also here, like I talked about trying to stay ahead of attrition, we're looking into another recruit class of 50. TJ, I know we have that. How is it going? We should have done a as far as your recruitment numbers total taking the exams.
Yeah, it's tough, Mayor. The times are still tough to recruit and retain. I'm still losing. I lost 4 last week. Officers that didn't reach maximum age or time, but as soon as they reach a pension time where they either have the 32 years or the age 55, they're leaving now where they never did before. But between family pressures and pressures of the job and changes going on, they're leaving sooner. And what I lose is I lose somebody who's 53, 54 years old, and they take that experience right out the door. So there is currently a class of 35. We tried to get 50. We only got about 40, and we've lost 5 since the inception of that academy class. But we do have 35. They're scheduled to get out mid-June, which will help us through the summer. By the time this class graduates, I'll already be down anywhere from 12 to 20. State police are in our building now doing background checks of 8 to 10 officers. So it's just a constant trying to keep up with the level of personnel that I have, the number of people.
And you had a very heartfelt article with the Ukrainian veteran that we have of his family members going through there. And that's the type of individual who's getting comes from police officers. Godspeed to he and his family. Also, so we do we do have the funds that to keep the academies going. Am I correct, TJ?
Yeah, well, definitely. That's our top priority is to get well, not going to have attrition backfilled right now.
And we also had the funds here. I'm glad to see that and we talked about some months ago, TJ, that was with the 7 mile. We are going to the shot spotter is expanding.
Yeah, we need to. Well, we would like it. I think the police department is looking to get out in the Orchard neighborhood and to expand beyond where we are. So we're going to add an additional mile to the shot spotter system here. And shot spotters now talking about also potentially having cameras to get images of people firing the weapons.
That'd be huge.
We're going to look at upgrading to that. And it's the system works well.
And we're cutting edge to find analysis that's going to be continuing funding the body worn cameras. Training facility, now we have a state that is partnered with us on.
That'll start bringing in more and more revenue.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, just alone for the harvesting of rats brought in roughly $10,000 since it opened. That's not even harvesting the wet, which we did.
Yeah. So that was good. That was a good investment. So how many? How many are you down right now from when we feel that we have maximum? We're always going to have the max strength out on the street, but how many are you down now? Because before we were sort of staying ahead of attrition. How many are down, even with this academy?
Even with this academy, right now I'm going to be down 14. And then
so we caught up a little bit.
You have state police coming in. I think their class starts in June, so I'll be down.
Yeah, and do we have 10 going to the Holyoke?
I'm trying to get. I was promised 5. I'd love to get 10. They're full already. As soon as that regional academy starts up in Holyoke, they're looking to start it in June.
We're trying to find out Furillo, Chief Furillo.
Bob Furillo, the
Bob
municipal police
trainer with the shooting range.
They
would try to make sure they
he promised me 5. I'm hoping for 10.
Yeah, and we've always accommodated other surrounding cities such as Chicopee, Holyoke, even colleges we've accommodated. So sometimes we had a number of 50 from West. You'd have 2 from West Side, 3 from Chicopee. So that's good that they're going to. So we sort of cut that number down because I know at one time during the height of COVID, we were up there. So let's take the state police. It's probably going to 20 something. You're going to look at the beginning, you look at retirements, unknown attrition. So we're going to try to come back to 50. So maybe we make it caught up.
It's a brand new list for this academy. So it'll probably go, we'll finish this list and we'll beg them for another test next fall or early next spring. We also try to keep up and maintain the non-lethal weapons as they come up, the bowler wrap and the taser. That's important and big when you're talking about non-lethal weapons. And then we figured $145,000 for salary increases. Both the patrolman's union and the supervisors are up for contracts.
We're in the midst of negotiating on both, and the bolo wraps and the take, and that's de-escalation methods after verbal doesn't do the trick. So that's important.
Try to keep up all our software. I talked to the U.S. Attorney's Office about a new software, Shadow Dragon. We're looking into that now. It might entail some overtime, but it's a tremendous piece of equipment as far as investigating firearms or drugs. It has the ability with GPS, if you have a suspect, to find out what that suspect drives, who he or she associates with, and where they were at any given time. So I'm all about it. The U.S. Attorney's Office is helping me with it, and we hope to get that working too. So that was also some of our highlights. So we want to expand ShotSpotter coverage another additional mile. We need to cover Mallory Village, Putnam Circle. We got a lot of complaints.
I see Kathy Brown's on right now, so we hear you loud and clear about the Mallory Village situation. Yeah, I'd like to be able to do that. We've gone in there with code.
Yeah, and then we got to get it out towards the orchard.
Yeah.
So we're looking to do that. And then, yeah, we'd be certainly looking to upgrade ShotSpotter if they could ever put a camera. When they notice the sound or a gunshot, if they could give us a quick look at who's around at the time, we could maybe get who's shooting or who's leaving the area. We have the body-worn camera program is great. I have all my officers, plainclothes and uniform, sporting the body-worn cameras. The footage has been so useful. It was very helpful in the 2 shootings we had in January. It's been very helpful for disproving a lot of the citizens' complaints. Well, first, the officers were a little bit leery of it. Now the officers won't go out without wearing one. So it's very successful.
TJ, you had mentioned on the ShotSpotter that possibly with the expansion of the camera, do you know when they might do it or consider it?
So I just heard about that probably 2-3 weeks ago. So we're, once we actively negotiate with them for the next mile, I was going to ask them about the implementation and how far along they are. I don't know if it's just their infancy stages or if it's been replicated and we just got to pay kind of a one-time upgrade. So I don't know the information I'm looking to get.
And then I know both with Commissioner Calvi and Police Superintendent Clapper, our departments now are very diversified, not only in rank and file, but supervisory capacity. We are at or above parity now, am I correct?
I'm above.
You're above?
Yeah.
Okay, which one? Okay.
We started the, and we want to continue the implementation of peer-to-peer training of sending officers. We found out that the best way to help officers involved in critical incidents and trauma situations was to have other officers who are trained so that they can talk to somebody before they go home. You don't want people going home and carrying a burden or being confused about what happened. So I do have a group of officers who are trained, and I will continue to keep them up in the best that we have to offer as far as any assistance. The Firearms Investigation Unit, since the inception, the unit's already recovered 251 guns and 3,596 rounds of ammo. So they use the highest technology to track these people. Fortunately for us, a lot of the people with the illegal guns like to show it on social media sites. So we're on that, we monitor that, and then we get the warrants as needed. We organized a multi-agency citywide dirt bike and high visibility traffic enforcement details. We've already netted over 127 seized dirt bikes, motorcycles, ATVs, and illegal off-road, and we will continue that. And as you said, Mayor, there's a big operation for that.
That's right, and I know people many times will say that the mayor or the common concern, like, go right at them, just take them down, and there's procedures that the police have to follow. We feel the same way, but we have to make sure that not only the officers stay safe, the pedestrians or vehicular traffic stay safe, and actually the perpetrators that they stay safe. But I think the Police Superintendent Clapper has a few things up their sleeves, and I think you're going to see those coming out as early as today. I was just to know how disrespectful these individuals were. We had the Oak Grove Cemetery, sacred ground, hallowed ground of a cemetery. We had to chase them out of there, and we made some pickups this week. And we're going to continue to work with our state police partners, the eye in the sky, and some other techniques. We do need to back up the courts. We do need the legislature to move on the destruction of these bikes, and we want to highlight that. Once if it's a stolen bike, not the proper owner, but sees that this is a phenomenon that is occurring, unfortunately, through urban America, urban centers in America, and it's just unacceptable. And I know that the public will stand by us as we continue to be a little more aggressive on taking these dirt bikes down. It's not this is not the Thunderdome here. Mel Gibson and Tina Turner on it. So be patient, and we are tracking. We need the courts to back us up. And we also need the courts to back us up. Last week, I believe the men and women in blue made an arrest, picked up 4 or a half dozen, definitely 4 1 arrest. Guns arrests. These people were out already on prior gun arrests. They were let go, and we picked them right back up again. So we're going to keep banging the drum on that, and I know Police Superintendent Clapper has testified again recently for Governor Baker's, Lieutenant Governor Poole's dangerous spill with the visiting attorney incident from YWC. Just heart-wrenching testimony testified for the state hearing too. And yet, the legislature is not moving on these things. These are violent criminals. These are it's targeted to the violent criminals, and there's no movement. So the police are doing their job, and we need to back up the courts. FOIAs, I know every department teacher, we've been dealing with that. Every department, the new laws here came on COVID. We're looking to beef that up on the FOIA stuff. When And as Judge Payne, Solicitor Payne indicates, some are very legit, but many, a number of them are very frivolous, which is very time consuming and cost consuming, but to the best of our ability. You got all your IT stuff.
Radios are important. I think we had an example of that in January when we lost the box got knocked down and lost power, so it's important for us to maintain our radio system, improve it.
We are working towards redundancy based on the incident that happened.
That was on a Sunday morning. I think we're all on the horn. We're all on the horn Sunday. Yeah,
technologically wise, and we are have since fixed it. We make sure we have complete redundancy. That was just a small box. Not just replace it, right? Put it down.
Well, I think that the DPW director should normally speaks. There's just been a rash of knockdowns, whether it's traffic lights, but just because of erratic and dangerous driving. And the supply chain is very difficult now, where we used to be able to turn around and get whether it's conduits or traffic lights done, within a short period of time. We go with Chris. Could take 6 weeks, 2 months now to get parts on it. So
left because we had the controller out. The next week there was an accident there. The exact and the car was on top of where the controller was. So what happened? The next week again.
So Superintendent, Police Superintendent Clapper, this is what we want to continue to fund. We have that. And then we have your additional requests here, which piggyback, as we spoke on, the shot spotter going into the orchard area to Mallory Village, the crime analysis training. So overall, it's like really only a $500,000 increase. And of course, we're in the middle of contractual negotiations, which is built in when we eventually come to agreement or settlement. Those other newer bowler wraps, are they coming in or are they coming in at the end of the month?
Bowler wraps are supposed to be in this week. There's a little wait. They're waiting to hear from the Municipal Police Training Committee as to what level of force they fall into. I'm foreseeing they fall into something right around handcuffing. So level 2 uses of force for restraints, and then we'll be good to go.
Okay. And I think the police superintendent will have some creative ways how that is going to. Superintendent Clapper, anything else you'd like to highlight? Any other requests, any other challenges or needs?
No, Mayor, it's it's important that we have the funding for academies. As you said, we're just keeping up with the vacancies that come. So we need to make sure we shoot for another class of 50 right after this.
Okay.
The PD, we've been averaging 40 to 50 retirements and resignations over the last couple of years, and the state police and other agencies, for other reasons, people have been leaving early. So it's been a challenge. So we'd just like to try to keep up with it so that we can maintain a minimum manning for the coverages on 9/11 calls and maintain what I have as far as investigative units.
And again, the C3 initiative, community policing, will continue in the various neighborhoods that we have that.
We've been able to maintain that. We've been able to maintain the ordinance unit for quality of life programs.
That's a big one for me. We created that. We took over, so people love it. They love that ordinance.
Yeah, we try, we warn them, we verbally warn them, and then finally you got to go with the citation to the fine phase because they just don't get it.
Superintendent Clapper, usually when we were looking at retirements or unforeseen people leaving the department, weren't we before the COVID-19 and before the tumultuous last couple of years of what was going on throughout the country. Where was it? We were looking at 20 something, 30 at a high. So now you're looking at, am I right?
Yeah,
22
25 to 30,
30.
now we're at 40.
So now your base is starting at 40 and up.
40 and up.
And you're seeing he or she officers go that don't really have the time, but the family that they want them out.
I've never seen people leave with 10 or 15 years on the job like I am now because of either the stresses of the job, the way the officers are treated, or their family is putting pressure on them to get out, and they're leaving for other things. And they're young people. They're leaving for relocation down south. They're leaving for other businesses, other opportunities. We would never see that before.
And
so
the thinking for 50 was 50 would be the number to get ahead of attrition to.
If we get all 50.
we got all 50.
Now 50 has turned into 40 in the academy, which is not keep up with attrition.
And then 33 to 35 graduates.
So even if you, well, 50 sort of the watermark there.
What I'm going to try to do is offset it with that regional academy. If I can get 5 or 10.
Okay, so
in the region.
So that gets you to 55 or 60. There's 10, actually more than 10% attrition now with the academy. So sometimes about 20%. So you end up losing 12 to 15. So if you did get to 55 or you get to 60, you're able to get 42 or 45. And the point here is that if he or she, the individual, and you guys know better than me because you have the academies, if they can't cut it in the academy, psychologically or physically, they won't last on the street, and they can cause a problem. You don't want that. That's why you have to cut them up. I don't teach your time.
No, that's all the questions I have. So that's great.
Yeah.
I'm on call for that. So thank you.
Thank you.
That's it.
11.
We could probably, we could probably do it here if things I'm going to do with Commissioner Calvi now, and I'm going to do DPW director. So I think we could possibly be done by 11.
Okay.
We're going to, unless something unforeseen, we'll try to get it done because I know we got to hop on.
You want it with you or you want it? Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Always great camaraderie. I love that. It's much needed, especially what we do. Hey, Mr. Calvi, you've done a tremendous job. Besides that stuff, obviously doing fighting fires, saving structures, saving lives. Very proactive. I know we have some more announcements coming up. I forgot to mention too that Narcan response, at least the Narcan, we have some other good announcements coming up in the very near future. And we have a ceremony coming up pretty soon and some new graduates and promotions.
Yeah, Monday the 28th, we're going to swear in 2 recruits, and we're going to promote district chief, captain, and lieutenants.
Right. The key part to the fire department going to have attrition, but they're able to have the mini academies throughout the year. So, which
mini academies for the viewing public, sometimes we go up to. We have in the orchard with the state run on the deal we have. Commissioner Calvin's about 10 or 12. Yeah. Springfield run the largest number, but they are many academies that run. And again, as with many front-facing departments, they never stopped. Never stopped in the code. So, Commissioner, I don't TJ if you have Tommy anything you want to say. No, I'll turn it over to Commissioner Calvin.
Okay. This year, our budget request is approved. The request is for $25.8 million for the fire department. This allotment would allow us to maintain a level service for the citizens of Springfield with the 8 engine companies, 4 ladder trucks, the heavy rescue squad, the chiefs. Maintain 287 FTEs. 275 of those are uniform employees. We're currently down 11 positions. We've done the hiring process to get these people in a August or September academy with the state. We're losing people at a rate of about 10 to 12 a year right now. Retirements. Our next biggest group, the way the department used to hire, we were very similar to the police department. We put in a class of 50 class. So the 89 class was a 50-person class. The 95 class, which was my class, was a 50-person class. And the 97 class was another 50-person class. So we're hoping to maintain our hiring and keep up to our staffing levels, because in 3 years, when the 95 class ages out, it's going to be a big chunk of people going out at the same time. And then 2 years after that, when the 97 class retires, people that are left from that, that'll be another 20 people probably going at the same time or close to the same time based on their birthdays. So we need to make sure that we maintain our
the model that we have is not sustainable, just due to the fact that the budget is not solid enough footing to replace now, having sold the building to the state and negotiated with them essentially to send 10 to 12 firefighter recruits to the, it's been
it's a
strategic approach that we took, God, I don't know how many years ago now, we sold the building, maybe 10. But all strategic, it has had a desired effect that to start getting ahead of attrition. You not have that clip if, you know, the 95 class tires were down 50.
So yeah, the strategic planning on that years ago is paying fruits now that we're able to maintain. When you lose a person, 2 or 3 people, we put a class in right away. We had a delay this year with civil service. We wanted to hire back in the end of November, but they capped the hiring at that point because they were merging the lists. We got a new program with civil service. They run an entrance exam every year now, and then they merged the lists. This was the first time they did it, so they capped hiring. So if you didn't have your requests in by November 28th, you couldn't hire until basically March 1st. So there's a 4-month block of time that we couldn't onboard anybody. So we're kind of catching up from that right now. We wanted to hire these 11 people almost 6 months ago, but they blocked us out from hiring because of the way civil service was operating. So now we're trying to get these people in and get them moving forward. Once July comes, we're going to lose a couple more people. So then we're going to begin right as soon as we finish this onboarding process with the August class. We're going to start an onboarding process for probably another 6 to 8 in the January class. So we've got that all planned out and are working towards that. This budget also maintains our physical fitness program. We are in a basically one-of-a-kind tactical athlete program with Springfield College. I partnered up with them to work with one of their graduate one of their doctoral students in the physical education training. Yeah, so we're like a one-of-a-kind program in the country, piloting a tactical athlete program. We have a physical trainer visit every station at least once a week, tailors individual physical training programs for all the members. We have a group workout at Springfield College on Saturday mornings. So it's really starting to get the buy-in we wanted from it now. So we're hoping that in the long term, that's going to help maintain physical cardio and respiratory physical fitness and lower our injury rate as time progresses. You know, it's slow to build, but it's a one-of-a-kind program, and we're starting to get the desired effect and participation that we wanted out of that. And it's a pilot program for other departments nationwide that could possibly follow.
Well, to couple with that, we're going to make a concerted effort to prepare the gym facilities at each of the fire stations so they have facilities for now. So.
Are you pretty good on? I know you're very conscious on the equipment you need, or
yeah,
it's major trucks.
So this the budget maintains our 6 rolling leases.
Yeah.
So this July, another piece will come off, and we're going to order a ladder truck this year after July 1st if the budget's approved. It enables us to maintain our safety equipment to the industry standard. During capital, we addressed 75 additional air bottles that we needed to buy was tentatively approved. So what we're doing too is we're upgrading our air cylinders from 30 minutes to 45-minute cylinders to give us an added safety margin during structure fires and meet the upcoming proposed NFPA standard change for air packs, which are going to be 45-minute cylinders in the future. Enables the department also to maintain its EpiPen program. EpiPens are very expensive. They're a low frequency use item, but every time we use one, it saves a life. Since the program's inception, we have 4 confirmed saves of anaphylaxis using the EpiPens in the field, and that costs us about $16,000 a year in EpiPens because they expire because it's a medication. This budget also accounts for the added holiday of Juneteenth, which was negotiated with the labor unions, and continues with that. So our additional request this year, we've added money in for a fleet vehicle replacement program similar to our apparatus program.
Those like the tack trucks and things you do?
Pickup trucks, staff vehicles, fleet vehicles. We've got 6 leases built in, as I said, for the main apparatus. What we'd like to do moving forward, so we just did a purchase of 12 fleet vehicles. As we move forward, we'd like to put 1 or 2 vehicles in a rotating budget every year, so we can purchase 1 or 2 every year, so we're not behind the 8 ball as we move forward, having to buy.
I already put his order in.
This is how it's done.
Because I was a good team player, right?
This is how it's done.
This is how replacement schedule is done.
So it'll put everything on a replacement schedule of like 10 years. So we just purchased 12 vehicles, and those are replacing 1999 S10 Blazers. We've probably gotten the most out of any S10 Blazer in the continental United States.
No.
So we're hoping that as we move forward, we can get a fleet vehicle replacement program going to buy 1 or 2 a year to keep the fleet up to date and good service. The TAC units we've already touched on a little bit. There'll be more coming on that in the future. And then the updated fitness equipment for the stations, make sure all of that is up to date and working appropriately.
Okay, question. Director Signoli, Commissioner Clapper mentioned, Mr. Calvin, with the gasoline prices going up, we're anticipating budgetarily that's going to.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we've already addressed the facility department budget transfer. We're watching DPW, fire, police, appropriation in, well, most likely to transfer budget. But if we're,
Of course, the price of diesel fuel was basically doubled in the last couple of months. So.
they're on a watch list.
That one item I know Pat Burns presents to the council once a month. So when it eventually does have to go there, we have to put that in. It's well worn.
That's I know you when you're out, you got to buy ahead of time. It's not like I know you buy the salt, you buy it ahead of time. So diesel has doubled.
We burn in a structure fire, an apparatus will burn up to 10 gallons an hour just sitting in pumping. So it adds up pretty quick when we're at a fire. It's just, you're running right at like 2,500 RPMs or higher. It's just burning diesel fuel.
And then maybe you can explain to the public, we have these TAC units, and I know that in the very near future, Mr. Calvin, Superintendent Clapp, Commissioner Health and Human Services Commissioner, we'll have some announcements pertaining to go at all things kind of programs. But explain the TAC units that you have.
Okay, so we have 2 TAC units in service when manpower permits right now in the city. One is in District 1 in Division 1, and one is in District 2 in the Fire Division 3. Those were identified by heat mapping as the 2 busiest EMS districts in the city. So I put fast response vehicles in to handle EMS calls when staffing permits in those 2 districts. That speeds the response time to medical calls, and it helps limit the wear and tear on ladder trucks going to EMS calls, because we're in every neighborhood. We can oftentimes be there before the ambulance or before the police cars, depending on where they are. So these fast response EMS vehicles have really aided in, one, getting us to the scene quicker. We cut 1.5 minutes off our average EMS response in the downtown area when the TAC units are in service, because they can respond so much quicker, and in the East Forest Park area as well, by enabling those vehicles to get around so much quicker in those congested areas. We get there quicker, we can render aid quicker, and it's secondarily benefit to them. It saves wear and tear on the larger apparatus like that. And these units also are available for fire response on larger incidents. They respond to structure fires in the city and provide supplemental manpower for engine truck companies.
So everything you need then is encompassed in the budget here.
Yeah.
Things going and some additional things I'm hopeful. I think we're hopeful we can do some of these things. Any other highlights, Commissioner, or anything else you want to put forward?
We also put in for a firefighter safer grant, and that would, if we were to get that from the federal government, that would now enable us to add 4 more positions to the department, and that would be on a sliding scale over a 4.5 to 5 year period. The first couple of years, the first year that the federal government would pay for these 4 positions, and then it's a sliding scale down to where the city would assume full responsibility financially as we move forward for those additional 4 positions.
Just 4, that's it.
Yeah, so the key part of all these grants is that you gotta look at it, they get to increase your complement permanently, so you gotta be out for attrition allows for it. So
okay, so that's what. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't want. I remember it was Catch-22 some years ago when they wanted to give you. I don't forget the number, 20 or 50, where there was a police and fire, but there was a catch that if you had to make some adjustments,
you had to maintain that complement.
You need the whole thing.
New number.
Yeah, new number. So okay, now I understand.
So this is what TJ and I and Eric discussed it. We thought that 4 was a financially feasible number as we move forward for sustainability. Next we have. Anybody else?
Is there any questions pertaining to the fire side? Okay, the Commissioner County does with Deputy Wells has the emergency dispatch. So
yeah, so emergency communications, as everyone knows, now falls under fire department control. The budget for emergency communications at a level service maintains 58 FTEs, and it would add additionally 2 supervisors to increase our 24/7 coverage of supervisory personnel on the floor at all times in dispatch, and 1 QA training position to help onboarding, retention, and ensure that quality assurance is at the highest levels, making sure the dispatchers are handling the calls appropriately and things are being dispatched timely and as they need to be. It also allocates for increased equipment cost and repair. So we completely redid the dispatch center and upgraded radios and computers and things like that. And this budget allots for the maintaining of that equipment and basically like the fleet vehicle replacement program, we'll change out so many computers a year that are beginning to age out so we can maintain everything at the highest standards. The additional requests, and also with this budget, a large part of it is then offset by the 9/11 community grant, which then brings a lot of it back down.
I know we broached this subject yesterday. With regards to TJO, those costs, finalize that.
We've got to look into it more if there's a card set or anything for animal emergencies, and then we further have to look in as to where we can send people or tell them to go and refer them to. The question was yesterday about giving citizens emergency advice as to where they could bring injured animals in time of emergency. But there's no emergency vets in the greater Springfield area right now is what part of the problem becomes. And then being able to direct someplace to a veterinary clinic that's actually open and taking emergencies. We need to do more research on that.
So the onus of it was, or the reason that they were asking is that they're sending somebody out.
Right.
It's unnecessary.
Unnecessarily.
So consider that as you look for.
Yeah.
TJO and that sometimes you can talk a person through, you know, it's traumatic.
Oh, absolutely.
You can talk a person through it, calm the person down, give them a plan of attack. But as you said, Commissioner, if it is a triage type thing, then we have to let them know where they
can go. And the other problem that's going to be encountered with this, the Emergency Communication Center sees almost 400,000 calls for service a year.
Yeah.
We're outside of the city of Boston. We're the busiest center in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And oftentimes the center is going into overload. And if someone's on the phone with an animal problem and we've got 911 calls ringing, police they're gonna get dropped right off the call if something's coming in. It's a hot call. So that's another thing we have to look at as to how we're going to handle that problem, because if a structure fire comes in or a felony assault and battery or police chase is jumping off and there's a lot of phone calls coming in on that on the 911 phones, a low acuity call like someone has a problem with their pet is going to get kicked right off the board because there's just not the resources to handle it appropriately. And
can you just, for the viewing audience and listening audience, that dispatch training is not like a 1 hour thing. This is a major training, weeks and weeks of training before you can become a
certified dispatcher. It's a multi-week onboarding process where they go through all the basic onboarding, then they start the dispatch academy where they learn how to handle 911 calls and how to interact appropriately with citizens when they're calling in. Once they finish the basic academy, then the field training portion can be as much as another 6 to 8 weeks or more when they now come out of the academy and they're sitting next to an actual dispatcher on the floor learning how to take calls. And then we work them into that they're actually taking the calls themselves, and then we certify them as a call taker. And then they can sit in that station by themselves answering calls and then routing them to either the fire department, over to the police radio, or to AMR, our EMS partner. So once they master that and are good at call taking, then we move them to either a fire or police radio station, where then the same process starts all over again, where they shadow the fire radio operator or police radio operator, and then work themselves in, and then are handling calls with someone sitting next to them, and then finally certified as a police or fire radio operator, where they can then sit in that station by themselves. So it's a multi-week process to get trained up to be a dispatcher.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner, for doing that to the viewing audience. Sometimes what's it take to get dispatched? Why am I not getting something right away, or why are they asking me all these questions? And that's so you get better service. Quick question too. Sometimes we'll get, if you call 911 from yourself, is there still a kick over from state police? We're able to bypass that?
We're a primary answering point for cell phones within the city of Springfield. Okay. If you're in the peripheral areas around, there's like a fringe area that may still kick to state police in Northampton.
That's not a long delay.
That's not a long delay. So if you get kicked in Northampton, you're actually in Springfield, but you're
But Springfield proper now is direct.
In Springfield proper, it's direct right to our center. With that,
just one update.
Related to the training, you know we've had a heck of a time trying to maintain the complement.
So we have an attrition problem in the dispatch facility. Once we get people trained and they'll do probably a year here. So they leave for a number of reasons. We have a residency requirement for our dispatchers. So some people have decided that after they're trained up and having very marketable skills as a dispatcher, they'll go to other communities that don't maintain a residency requirement. We are also, as I stated, the second busiest 911 center in the state. So our dispatchers are superstars. Once they've done a year here in the city of Springfield, they've handled multi-alarm structure fires, they've handled police chases, they've handled shootings, they've handled a number of high incidents that you don't see in a lot of other centers. So our people are all-stars after a year, and other centers want them. So, and these other centers are quiet. So sometimes it's not even a money factor. People will leave us for the same or less money for a better workload. So other centers aren't as busy, they can make the same money and not work as hard or as much. Also because we're also in a constant state of losing people due to these other factors, we have mandated overtime because the seats have to be filled. So we will mandate force overtime on people. And even if they like the job, they will go to a center where they know they're not going to be forced for overtime.
I burn out when it comes to that overtime. So we're looking for a solution for that. For FY23, we'll have.
We're continually working on trying to improve the working conditions for everybody up there, being at the new center where it has good light. It's a much more pleasant working environment now. We've stemmed some of that, but there's still these outside factors that keep acting on it. You know, the same pay for less work, or a little less pay for less busy center. The residency of people decide that they don't want to live in the city anymore, and we mandate residency. So if they were to move out, we'd have to part them from the center. So they'll go to a center where they are not mandated, don't have these mandates on them. So those are all contributing factors that contribute to our high attrition rate in the center.
Construction was fine.
No, go ahead.
Construction was fine last time.
Roosevelt came out, it's great. It's a state-of-the-art center. It's meeting our needs right now. As I addressed in the capital planning budget, if we were able to build a new fire station in the Indian Orchard area, we would incorporate a backup 911 center in there to get it out of the police department and make another high-tech backup site.
With the additional service requests which you've gone over there, TJ, and financially,
So the additional service requests, we put in $5,000 in the dispatch for recognition and appreciation to try to improve retention. We put in one for additional QI training software. It's called Frontline, to upgrade the training process. We have a computer lab in the new center for training. Unfortunately, when we put it together, a lot of the equipment there was what we took out of Frontline use and was already approaching end of life. So we upgrade that, and we want to put some monitors in the center so we can maintain situational awareness with evolving things that are happening on the news, if they're making news in the area, or if there's live feeds coming in from time analysis. And we want to also look at a quiet room to allow space to decompress, so people can get off the floor for a little bit.
The key is that stay on premise. They can't just take a lunch break. So
yeah, something wrong.
So we've got some space at the center that we could repurpose, and that would probably cost us about $60,000 to build that out and make an appropriate quiet area so people can get off and get away from the audio overload.
As Pat Sullivan and John Garrett walked through yet or no?
We did a rough estimate, but we haven't priced it out finally yet.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah.
Get moving on it.
Okay.
It's the first contact 99% of the time. Any questions to you?
You covered all the key ones that I figured you needed to hear about.
Thank you, gentlemen. I will do that.
Okay, here comes the floor show now.
Commander Potwell.
We're gonna print up those T-shirts.
Get him that, a pork chop so the dog will play with it.
You're not gonna stay? You're not gonna stay?
No, I'm gonna miss the floor show.
I think you can watch the video.
You must be huge. You're really right about it. They're gonna sit in the box seats.
They're gonna sit in the box seats, yeah. The one thing BJ was talking about the physical fitness program, we have no such thing. Nor apparently in the finance department.
Oh, wow. I was gonna say,
Remember, he
You gotta take a shot.
well, there's the first slash right there.
Making friends everywhere we go.
And you're asking for money?
Well, you say no anyway, so I may as well take shots.
Again, I want to thank DPW Director Signoli and his hierarchy and the rank and file, who again, I would say it for a year and a half, we did our COVID updates. Never stopped being on the front lines. That was deeply appreciative. So, I don't, TJ, Tom, anything over before
turn it over
to Director Signoli, please?
Mayor, thank you. And just on that point that you were talking about, I got to thank my guys who were here, my team back at Tapley, and the employees. They all have done a fantastic job, especially during COVID. We had no issues throughout the entire, not that the pandemic's done, but throughout the entire 2 years of employee issues and things like that. So everything really went well. In our department, we are supposed to have 136 employees, 86 of them in the general, 80 of them in the general fund and 56 in the enterprise fund. It is 2 separate budgets. They do not commingle at all. And in putting together our requests for next year, moving on, I just wanted to highlight a couple things from this year that are also driving our budget for next year. We've talked about fuel. And the city uses about 50,000 gallons of fuel every month. So every month. So it's a significant amount of money. A year ago, we were paying $218 for regular and $228 for diesel. The last one we got was $369 for regular and $442 for diesel. If you go back to June, July, August of 20, we were not under $1, close to being at $1. So those figures have gone crazy.
So what was the diesel was 442?
440, 369. That was the last bill that we received. It changes basically every week, but from a commodities market.
And year before, you said you were looking at 218.
In June, July, August of 2020, we were down in the low $1, below $1 per fuel. That's how cheap it was during the pandemic. In developing the budget for fiscal year 22 with regard to tip fees, it was assumed, that's current fiscal year, it was assumed that we've had a significant increase in the amount of tonnage with regard to trash recycling. And as part of the CARES Act that was given to the city through the state, we were going to be offsetting tonnage increases as part of the pandemic, which we did for 4 quarters or so, TJ, between 2 fiscal years.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, late last year, they came back and said no. So really the budget hadn't been increased. So we're going to be looking at a very big deficit number on the tipping fees. And we've obviously been going back and forth with finance on that constantly. And our tonnage went from 40,000 to 47,000 in trash and 7,000 to 8,000 in recycling. This year too, with all the contracts that were done, we've had to absorb about $225,000 in raises and retro payments. And the other big item that we deal with is overtime, especially in the traffic division. And just as a couple of anecdotal items, 4th of July celebration, right out of the chute, in a department's got $50,000 of overtime. We spent $15,000 on that weekend. One of the things that's coming up now on all of these events, we went through it for Hall of Fame, 4th of July, Jazz and Roots, all these things. We just aren't down there putting out barricades. we have to have trucks, physical trucks out there from a Homeland Security standpoint. So not just dropping off barricades. So now it's become a very big manpower issue on these things. So the costs have really skyrocketed. Just as a point on the traffic division, 50,000, we've spent 54,000, I believe the number is, through December 31st. So that's a little bit of an issue moving forward. In the department now, I'm going to say we have about 10 vacancies. That number depends on what time it is. We have about 10 vacancies that we're going through. Submitted some stuff this week to Bill, TJ, and Tommy about some changes we need to make for work classifications. It has no impact on finance. It's just the way that we want to go about hiring on that. In moving into the new fiscal year, our general fund budget level funded this year was 11.1. We're requesting 12.4. And in the enterprise fund, it was about 10.9, and we're requesting 12.1. Both of those are about 12% increases. And the increases that we're requesting fall under kind of 4 categories. They're either contractual, that we have agreements with vendors for certain things, and or union contracts. So when we have new union contracts, we have clothing, boot allowances, daily cash bonuses in trash, overtime requirements, things like that. We also have items that have been underfunded for various reasons, the tip fee and things like that I talked about. Things that are just general cost increases that we're dealing with. And then there's some recommended increases that we have had conversations with finance before we put the budget together, and that's for basically for the purchase of vehicles. Just to hit on a handful of these items, salaries, basically we're dealing with 4% increases on salaries because the current, budgets or the contracts that were approved were 2-year retro, so we're going 2 and 2. Yeah. That ends up being about $335,000. Traffic division overtime, as I mentioned, $35,000. Line painting cost for that service has skyrocketed. The last 3 years, we've probably only been able to do about a half of the city, a little more. Gas and diesel, obviously $58,000. And then getting into the formal vehicle replacement program in the city, we put together a 5-year plan with TJ that next year will be the first, I'm not going to say the first year, but adding money into the budget so that we get into the proper cycle of replacing vehicles. So that's about $500,000 or so within the general fund. On the enterprise fund, 4% increases as well. It's about $200,000. We have to do a new contract for tipping trash at condos throughout the city, and we're guessing that's going to be about $11,000. That bid is out right now. We have a unique thing in the enterprise fund of holiday pay. When a holiday falls on a Monday, our guys don't work on Mondays, so they get paid for the holiday. Next year is a very unique year. We have 12 holidays. 10 of them fall celebrated on Monday. So that's a bigger number than we're used to dealing with. It's $32,000. Our trash tipping fee, some of it was supposed to have been offset this year. It wasn't. And with what's going on and basically catching up 2 years, that number is $800,000 in increase. And tipping fee for recycling has been increased by $125,000. The tipping fee for trash is based 100% on commodities markets that we have in the contract. So we're able to follow those. The tipping fee for recycling is a set 2.5% per year in the contract. In enterprise, we also have line item in there for new vehicles as well. Excuse me, and gas and diesel increases of $100,000 in that as well. Since we put the budget together, 2 items have come up that we're going to end up having to talk to finance about. Excuse me. No, thank you. Disposal of tires doesn't sound like a big deal, but we're probably going to be, it's not a huge number, about $10,000 tops. Right now, we're having to bring them to the Albany area. No local vendors will accept them. So we're actually trying to go through and figure out what we're going to do with that. These are all based upon regulations that are put together either by DEP or EPA. And speaking of that, Mass DEP put something out a few weeks back of a waistband item on mattresses. Mattresses can no longer be a trash item, which means they have to be recycled. So therefore, in DEP, to be a recycling entity for mattresses, you have to be certified. And we're doing research right now, trying to figure out how that's going to work. About 4 or 5 years ago, DEP also made us separate when we pick up bulk, standard bulk stuff, couches, chairs, tables, things like that. We then have to separate all of the electronics. So we're making 2 separate pickups on bulk right now. So if somebody has at their house, they have couches and they have a TV or a refrigerator, we're making 2 trips. With mattresses, having to do those separately, we're going to be making 3.
So are you going to be looking to be certified, or like at the time?
No, this is
Albany, or do we have to bring mattresses?
Well, that's the thing right now. We're trying, since the regulation is brand new, we're with DEP. Greg and I were speaking this morning about trying to. I'm going to assume that there's going to be certain vendors around here that will want to be certified for whatever reason. So we got to find them, but. You know, right now we're just paying weight to get rid of those when we dump that stuff. In the future, it's probably going to be a per item thing. And, you know, we're guessing that it could be in the $20 to $30 range per mattress. And that's not just going to be DPW, because that'll also be Clean Cities, because they pick up literally a ton of those. So, you know, we'll work with them on that. Our tipping fees for trash, we expect to be about $82. Recycling, we pay $125 to get rid of recycling now. 2 years ago, it was $0. With the new regulations, it's $125. However, we've been having a pretty good offset of the recycling material, but that is also commodity market. Recycling materials went very, very well during COVID, because entities were not creating new materials, whether it was plastic, paper, cardboard, when businesses were shut down. So the commodities market for recycling really went well. We've done pretty well for revenue to offset that number. Bulk, we're paying about $92 to get rid of bulk items. E-waste, TVs, things like that, $900 a ton to get rid of those. CRTs, $700 a ton, and what we call white goods, which are things like refrigerators, air conditioners, $10 a unit with that. A couple things on our side that we're obviously following. The federal infrastructure bill, there is no provision in the bill where money comes directly to a community. There isn't a pot of money that's given to you or to you that you then give to me to do work in the streets. It is all run through the state. The first one that is a little different has come out. Notice of funding opportunity just came out this week for some application processes through the federal government. And my fear on the whole thing was that the state was going to gobble up all this money, and they did. They have initiated probably 60 to 80 new projects throughout the state of huge size. Many of them are in Springfield, a lot of bridge projects, but things like the replacement of the North End Bridge, redoing the Springfield Long Meadow Curve on 91. But there are probably 7 or 8 projects in the city of Springfield: Armory, Liberty, Rotary, St. James Avenue Bridge, Tapley Street Bridge, the other St. James Avenue Bridge, 2 or 3 intersection projects. So there's work that will be done in the city. However, it is not directly going to be overseen by the city.
The governor's announcement yesterday.
So there's those projects that we're following. The governors did put together a supplemental budget.
Chapter 90
that got axed.
I don't know. I would hope the legislature did look at that.
It's already been through the House, and just as an anecdote, a handful of our there was an amendment to put it back in. A handful of our representatives voted no.
Our reps voted no.
They voted no. It was in with a whole bunch of other stuff, but it was voted no. There is $100 million. We just got our number for fiscal 23, which is $200 million statewide, so we get about 3.6. In the governor's supplemental budget, there were 2 transportation items that were 100 million apiece. That would have given us a supplemental 3.6. 100 million of that was axed out of the House budget. It has now gone to the Senate for their review of it. But there is 100 million in there, which would give us an additional 1.8 million that they are calling winter weather. They've done this before.
So this would, besides potholes, this would give flexibility. We're saying some of the delegation wanted
on the amendments to get the Chapter 90 back in.
Because we hear about more private ways done, and that was our plan.
That was in there.
To try to do some private ways with general fund money, but if we had the supplemental budget here, we're going to look to identify more private ways.
Yep.
But some in delegation voted against this.
Yep.
How many items were there?
40, something like that. And there was a lot of stuff in there. There was a lot of very, very specific earmarks people were putting in. So it didn't surprise me that the whole thing got voted no. Yeah. But I was saying the whole idea was that they were going to take the Chapter 90 and make its own amendment.
Right.
And that would have been supported, but they didn't. They rolled it into.
I'm assuming that was a misunderstanding.
Well, House Ways and Means axed it right away when they did the first day.
There's usually a strategy involved when they do that.
Yeah.
To bring it out separately.
It makes purpose. And that would assist us. Speaking of that, DPW have done a number of projects, just to remind people. Bernie Ave, Morena, Tunnel was talked about for years since the book was put. We got that done. The Bay and Berkshire intersection, street lights going up on Cottage, and I'm sorry, the traffic lights are going up there. Cottage Industry around. Our sidewalk crews are very popular. We expanded that. We've done that. Tiffany Street's collapsing. St. Lawrence Avenue up in the Springfield area. South Branch Parkway drainage, East Forest Park area. And on and on, things that you have to St. James, Tapley Street, that's the east side. It's just a number of things I wanted to note here. Just, Chris, a couple of quick questions. It's pothole season again. It happens all the time. Expansion, contraction. So you say the paving companies are opening up Monday?
Opening up Monday.
Hot patches. So you'll have proactive units out there. Plus, people can call in, whether my office or we call them in the 311.
Let's say your chief of staff calls.
Yeah. And I got to say, the guys at DPW, but at times Chris knows I'll call morning, noon, and night, weekends, everything with traffic lights or blinking or this stuff, and your guys get out there almost immediately to handle it, what they can handle if parts aren't needed. Last thing I have before you continue, street lights, whatever source. I know we have made some progress on repairs, but it's like whack-a-mole.
Really?
They get the ones we have in there, and then others crop up, and then others they need more work. Where there's conduit, they need parts they can't get, and we continue to work with them and we're pushing them aggressively. Pardon the pun. You see some light at the end of the tunnel there that they're, that they have to recommit. It's not just one. Okay, Mayor Sarno's on our case or whatever. We got to let's do a blitz for a month or so. The communication there, as far as the street lights get repaired, the ones that can, the others, the times take time.
And that's kind of what's been happening over the last few years. Is we as DPW put in work orders daily with regard to street lights. And what seems to happen is that Eversource will take a 2-week period and say, all right, here's the whole list. We're going to go out and fix everything. And then it comes back. And as you say, whack-a-mole, it's like, okay, now you're going every day with something else going out. One of the problems that we do have now is we probably have 20 to 30 at minimum lights in the city that were knockdowns that still need to be replaced. The other major issue is that when, as a resident, you see a light out, the assumption is that it's a bulb. In a lot of cases, it is underground work, significant underground work. So we are trying, aside from that, we used to have our own portal to put stuff into the Eversource system. That's not really working now. So I've been working with Joe Mitchell and Mike Mitavelli on that to do that. We're actually been getting together a couple times on that. But streetlights being out, especially in October, November, when we do the time changes, everybody notices it then, because when you're driving home to work, you notice streetlights being out. It will wane this time of the year because less people see it, but the streetlights number being out is still a number. we're working with Eversource as well, that a lot of these, when I say damage, where they require a little bit more work than just a bulb to fix these things, they are installing LEDs. At this point, it's a small number, and we're going to be having a meeting with them in a couple of weeks because we need to talk about the cost implications of what they're trying to do with regard to how that is being paid for. I do not agree with they're actually charging us the same rate as we were with the non-LED because they're trying to make us pay for the new fixture at the same time.
Should be a low.
Didn't they get federal dollars to?
Well, that's the reason we're having a meeting.
Yeah, we're going to clarify that it should be a lower rate because with the LED being installed.
Yeah,
so
it is a lower electric rate, but what they're putting in there as well is the cost for the actual new fixture that historically hasn't been an issue whenever they had to do that. So we're trying to go through that with Eversource as well.
But I noticed on replacement schedule on the trash bills too.
It's on the list for quite a few years now. That we keep kicking the can. Unfortunately, I think we're coming to a point where the reason we delayed was we were thinking we were going to go to 65-gallon barrels.
Yeah, right.
The D was lifted or shifted or changed. So now we know we can continue to 95, 96.
I got to tell you, I don't know how other communities do it. They look like a tall kitchen trash.
They are. They're 35 gallons.
They're very treat that we have, that size. Plus that with recycling. Plus you get yard waste picked up for free. Plus you get both picked up for very nominal food. So there, other people commenting when they go to other communities or well, I don't know how to do it. That's, so, and they're pretty. These barrels are pretty durable. I know that for a lot, but I know they get banged around a lot. So we're going to finally do some.
I think we have some additional. That's one of the additional budget requests that's in there. Of course, additional funds. And we pay was about $50. Now it's about $60. I think we just did an order 60, 61. Something like that, dollars a barrel we'll be buying. So we do 2 or 3 times a year, we buy a bunch to have. So we're doing an order right now, getting them delivered.
You guys got to go on for what? Right in the background. So of course we got to Jim. So get very appreciative, Director Strong, and TJ and Tommy. I think some of the requests you have were already noted. I appreciate the efforts, especially during COVID. The trash. But we did do a lot of projects. I want to remind people. I know people from council need to remind people the projects you have done.
The only other thing I want to say on that, there probably in the next week or two, if I can get somebody to get the job done on that. We put
I don't like the way you treat me.
Bobby's actually what we've done is we put together a map with all of the projects that we are working on, and there's 30 plus that are these are active. And these, I think there's one that we finished, but these are all the active things that we're working on the city, an interactive map that's just going to have dots all over it for every project, whether it's us or the state that's working on in the city. Studies in the next week or two. We'll be going live with that too for people to be able to.
Speaking of that too, we had a snow map that was live and people, and I think that's worked out very, very well. And I think whether it was you, Chris, or Vinny Peter, that go on TV a lot of times, it was very helpful in explaining how the process goes and what needs to be done. And I know the board is to appreciate 301s around we take those. Okay, so just with that, that concludes today's budget sessions. And everybody do me a favor, have a good week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.